Hello, back at it again. Okay. I wonder what it is, Susan murmured. What do you mean? Elizabeth saw the look of wonder on Susan's features. Is there something there? Susan answered before kneeling down to knock more aggressively. She started near the place where the spectral girl must have been seen and then moved down the hallway. Rapping on the wall, she moved along. There was no mistaking it. The area behind the clock sounded different than the rest of the wall. It is all there, remarked Susan, walking back towards Elizabeth. I wonder what it means, Elizabeth wondered aloud. There must be an empty space behind the wall, Susan suggested. Maybe the little thing, maybe there's treasure. Or maybe a grave, Elizabeth countered. Why must you be so morbid? Susan sighed. It's just as likely as a treasure. Who buried someone on the wall? Susan challenged skeptically. Someone who didn't wish to be found out, I suspect. Ugh. Susan shivered, looking up and down the long, dark hallway. Let's talk of something else. Elizabeth moved aside and began to walk back to her room. Will she come tomorrow? You think? Susan pursued. Most likely, Elizabeth remarked, not turning around. If she does, do you think you should try speaking to her? Try to find out what she wants. Perhaps. Perhaps. That's all the answer she received. The following night, Elizabeth awakened at 3 a.m. and walked down to the hall as usual. Again, she encountered the young girl who sat with her back to the wall and her knees drawn up. Elizabeth said nothing for several minutes, gathering courage. She pretended her bravery in Susan's presence, but there, not alone, with a strange appearation, she was terrified. Suppose the ghost was angry. Suppose it didn't wish to be disturbed. In the end, however, Elizabeth collected her wits and spoke. Why do you sit here? Why do you sit here? She began in a voice that was very audible. The ghostly child sat perfectly still, its posture unmoved for several moments. Then, as if roused suddenly, the little head came up and the face of the young girl was clearly visible in its evanescence. Wake me up! Wake me up in a second! Wake up! Where was it? And then, a voice like wind and dry grass. I sit because I cannot stand. I stay because I cannot leave. Elizabeth did not answer this as first, taken off guard by the sound of the voice. How often she had shared silence with the little ghost. Now they spoke, two girls in the same hallway, separated by time and life. Why can't you stand? Elizabeth asked finally. Then why can you not leave? I stay because I cannot leave. I sit because I cannot stand. The girl repeated. Never want to be sentimental. Elizabeth dove into her questioning, determined to get to the bottom of the child's sudden appearance. Well, how long have you been sitting here? I cannot tell how long I've been here behind this clock. It counts away the hours. Day and night, night and day. I hear the hours fly away. I imagine that's quite true, Elizabeth began, noting the girl's antique clothing. But you can't have heard her talk so much lately. Because we've had it removed, it unsettled me so. And what now? Asked the ghost. What do you mean? Are you settled? Pursued the ghost. Elizabeth paused at this. No, I suppose not. Here I am, after all. Mulling about in the middle of the night, but I don't scream anymore, at least. So much the better for the roast of them, replied the ghost with a hint of sarcasm. Well, what of you? We're both here at this hour, aren't we? Spat Elizabeth. I can't help it, snapped the ghost. Who can blame me for what you see? And then, in a huff, she vanished. Elizabeth was equally muffled. She crossed her arms impatiently and marched up the stairs to her room. The next day she told Susan everything that the girl had said. As she spoke, Elizabeth noticed that one of the older maids in her mother's employ was watching them closely, listening to every word. "How now?" Elizabeth said, rather loudly, staring at the woman. What do you find so interesting?" "I ain't made no harm," Bertha answered, rising from her chair and coming closer. "I just couldn't help overhearing. You're talking about little ghosts, aren't you?" I, Susan began. "Elizabeth Caesar!" "The little girl," Bertha murmured. "Yes," began Elizabeth. "I think we made her quite cross with me last night." "She speaks to you?" Bertha seemed surprised at this. "Yes," Elizabeth answered matter-of-factly. "I've never spoken to her." "I never spoken to her, but I, too, have seen her," Bertha began. "Years ago, when I was a girl, like you. I think she only appears to young girls. Girls about her age who come in the hall when the clock's gone." When did you see her?" asked Susan. "Oh," Bertha chuckled. Many years ago now. My mother worked in the laundry back then. I was maybe 12 or 13 at the time. I remember that the clock was being repaired and had to be taken out. It's a rare thing, I recall. A clock that heavy wasn't easy to move, you know." Bertha paused, recalling events. "I remember I woke up one night, came downstairs and saw her sitting there. When I asked her mother about her, she hushed me and told me to never speak of it. She was very superstitious, but I was a curious girl. When I would get no answers from her, I asked one of the other servants. It was Miss Watkins, the scullery maid, who finally told me who she was." "Well, what did she say?" asked Susan. "Well, she told me a dismal story," Bertha began, "and I'm not even sure I have the right of it. Mrs. Watkins heard it second hand. It's a very old story." She paused, gaining momentum, and began to tell the story. "She was the daughter of a poor woman in town who came to work in the house. This was the time of the old lady Rosa's mother, Julia, and mind you, she was in her prime then, not 30, I believe. It was many years ago. Queen Victoria had not been on the throne very long, as I recall. This poor girl was ordinary in every way except that she suffered from a sleep disorder which caused her to walk about when she was sound asleep. Virtually every night she rose from her bed and walked the halls. After several years, it came to seem normal, and no one even remarked on it anymore. Indeed, the situation became so routine that the girl actually began sleeping in her slippers so that she wouldn't catch a chill from walking on the cold floors after nightfall." "What time did she rise?" Elizabeth asked curiously. "I don't know," Bertha shrugged. "But very late at night, I think, just a few hours before dawn." "Why?" It's at the same time that she wakes every night," Susan answered, motioning towards Elizabeth. 3 o'clock, Elizabeth remarked. Bertha looked at her for several moments, a kind of sad interest spreading across her features. "Aye, so it was with her. She rose and no one paid it much mind. It became routine, the way a thing will, given enough time. The situation was never cause for alarm because everyone in the house knew her condition. However, things turned tragic one winter night. It was right before Christmas. At that time, Christmas trees were novelty items enjoyed by the wealthy. They were, therefore, displayed in places of great prominence. That's why the front hall was chosen. The location offered not only a wide open space for lights and decoration, but it also was in close proximity to the marble fireplace where the stockings were hung. Well, on Christmas Eve of that year, some thieves broke in, most likely drawn by the prospect of holiday gifts waiting there. You can imagine their surprise when, in the midst of their crime, they noticed a young girl standing in the front hall. She couldn't see anything, of course. She was just standing there, asleep. These thieves would have had no knowledge of her strange condition. They would have assumed that she'd caught them in the act. No one is sure what happened next. But it was widely suspected that foul play occurred. That's all I'm doing now. Oh no, I'm doing it. I'm doing everything on my tablet, by the way. My YouTube channel, everything. Boy.